Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. Uh, Thanks for joining us on this weird timing of the week type of episode. We're making a video before the play-in, but of course, I'm here with Johnny. How's it going, Johnny?
Yo, yo, what's going on, man? I'm super excited. Been talking the last 3 or 4 weeks about almost playoff time, and finally we've gotten here where it is playoff time. Some intriguing playing matchups. I can't tell you the last time that the last day of the regular season actually brought some good games. So that was exciting as well. I'm ready to get in and talk about it.
Yeah, and just like the playoffs being back, so is my wacky camera here on the right side. We're gonna have to live through that. But what we're gonna do today for the show, it's gonna be a pretty short show. We're gonna go through the major award predictions and then also just our picks for the play-in, not like the whole playoff tournament quite yet. But starting with the award predictions, we could start with Coach of the Year if you have your three finalists, and then you could also give your winner too, and go in a little detail about that.
Yep, absolutely. So I went with Thibodeau, Quinn Snyder, and Monty Williams as my top three candidates. I ended up picking Monty Williams as Coach of the Year. Um, I felt that it was between him and Thibodeau really for that first spot. This is now year three, I think, for Utah with that Conley, Mitchell, Gobert trio. Um, but the Suns have just been so bad. And I know they got talent in Chris Paul, but I didn't think anybody expected them to be this good. Nobody expected the Knicks to be that good as well. But I think that taking over the second spot in the West is just such an achievement, and that's why I lean Monty Williams.
I mean, in terms of the three finalists, I can agree more with you. I also have Quinn Snyder, Monty Williams, the two top records in the NBA this year. And then also Tom Thibodeau with what he's done for the Knicks. I feel like he's proved more of all those Eastern Conference coaches. Yeah, maybe Doc Rivers a little bit too, but he's always had like pretty solid regular seasons in recent history. My winner though, I ended up picking Tom Thibodeau. I just think nobody expected anything from the Knicks going into the year. Of course, with the Suns, there wasn't high expectations, but I think at least most people were on the same you know bandwagon or whatever. It's saying like, okay, they're going to be in the playoffs. It's just a matter of like where it is, and I think most you and I and most other people had them like in the lower half. So they did exceed expectations. But in terms of the Knicks, I believe we both had them like what 14th in the Eastern Conference, and that's supposed to be the weaker Eastern Conference too. And somehow they're ending up with home court advantage in the first round of a playoff series. I don't think anyone expected that, and if you just look at their roster, they're not like a entirely great team. Julius Randle, All Star, R.J. Barrett's played well. They added Rose. Outside of that, a lot of these guys, you wouldn't think that they're going to be, top tier talents. Utah had three All Stars this year, and has had a great team for a while. And then also, the Suns, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Mikal Bridges has even improved. So I don't know. I think that the Knicks probably the most surprising one, and for that, I got to give it to Thibodeau.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could go wrong with anyone here. To me, it's going to be some iteration of Tibbs and Monty Williams as the 1-2 combination, and then Snyder will fall into that third spot. But like I said, if you want to flip a coin, I'm totally fine with that because I think both of them are equally deserving.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that as well. But we could move on to most improved player. I guess I could give my three finalists right now, and then you can follow me. For my three finalists, I had Michael Porter Jr. I think that he's been kind of under the radar this year. Um, I went with Mikal Bridges. He's gone up in terms of efficiency, become one of the best two-way players in the game on a great team. And then also Julius Randle, he changed himself from being one of those solid NBA players to, being almost like a superstar and actually like an MVP case. Maybe not quite like up there at the top of the top, but, he's probably going to end up being on an All NBA team. And for that reason, I ended up picking Julius Randle. Right now, I guess I'm two for two with Knicks picks. But I don't know. I just think that this one is probably more, favorable for a Nick to win it, but I don't know. We'll see what you have over there.
Nothing different. Literally the same three candidates, the same winner. So for that, I will throw out an honorary most improved candidate as Jeremy Grant. Missed quite a few games towards the end of the season. Pistons kind of just started tanking or continued to tank. He was sitting every game for rest or small injuries here and there. But early on, it seemed like Jeremy Grant had a case to not only be a candidate, but even win the award, and then kind of just faded along as the year went. But it wasn't even him fading as much as it was Julius Randle just taking over that position. Anytime you get a guy how do I word this? Anytime you get a guy that the Knicks thought they were getting a good player, that turns into an MVP candidate and an All NBA candidate, is most likely a lock for most improved player. And I don't think there's a case to be had that any of Jeremy Grant, Mikal Bridges, or Michael Porter Jr. can take this award over Julius Randle. I think it's almost as much of a lock as the MVP, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned him. I only put four people for one category, and that was the one. I also had Jeremy Grant on mine, so I just think that was kind of funny. We can move on to Sixth Man of the Year, though. In terms of your three candidates and winner, what do you have?
Yeah, this was a weird award this year. You didn't get your Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell type action that we've been used to seeing the last couple of years. Although I did pick two players from the same team. I'm gonna go to Utah, and I'm gonna pick both Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles as candidates. And then the third one was a weird one, right? Like you could go Terrence Ross, you could go Harrell on the Lakers, you could go Tim Hardaway Jr., Jalen Brunson. Excuse me, but I actually landed with Derrick Rose as my third candidate. To me, in terms of actually picking the winner of this award, it was picking one of the two in Utah. And I ended up going with Jordan Clarkson. It's not too common that you see two players on the same team running for the same award. I think MVP is the biggest or the time we see that the most, right? Like where if the Lakers get the one seed, but you have both Anthony Davis and LeBron James, do they kind of cancel each other out? The Sixth Man of the Year just doesn't happen that way. You can kind of get multiple players from the same team. So that's kind of why I went with both of those. But like I said, Jordan Clarkson gets my vote at the end of the day.
Yeah, in terms of my three candidates, two in Utah as well, Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles. Clarkson, people were picking him to be, the all-star, for them. Some over like Conley and stuff like that. As crazy as that sounds, but we haven't seen many Sixth Man of the Year candidates, in that kind of category in a while. Joe Ingles had probably one of the most efficient seasons ever, and actually took like a big responsibility once like Donovan Mitchell went out, like in the last month of the season. And then my third candidate, I'm right there with you with D Rose. I think that he probably has the strongest like single player impact on the bench this season. And then he's having a career high season in terms of 3-point shooting, probably playing some of the best defense of his career. The only thing I think hurts his case in terms of winning the award is the fact that it's kind of like with Harden for MVP. Harden started off the year with the Rockets, so does that come in the factor with how he's done with the Nets? And Rose can't really control like what happened in Detroit. They started to rebuild, but he did play about 10, 15 games there, so I wouldn't necessarily give him the win, considering Jordan Clarkson's play well, from the start to the finish. He kind of did slow down a little bit, and Joe Ingles, kind of came up there a little bit. But I would say Jordan Clarkson is the winner for Sixth Man of the Year as well.
Yeah, I think kind of like Coach of the Year, you're going to see either Clarkson or Ingles win it, and then D Rose get that third honorary vote. Same way you're going to see Snyder get that in Coach of the Year. So it should be interesting to see if voters weigh that early part of the season where Clarkson went on a tear, or if they kind of put more weight on Ingles taking over once we saw some injuries arise for the Jazz.
For sure. But we can move on to Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I feel like this one we might have some differences on. But, we'll see. I could list my three candidates right now. First one I'll go with is Rudy Gobert. He's a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year. He currently has the Jazz as the best record in the league. Once again, one of the best defenses in the league, and he's the biggest problem or biggest reason for that. Uh, the second candidate, the guy that's been up there with him pretty much all year long, and that's Ben Simmons. Same thing, first seed, just on the Eastern Conference, and he's able to play inside and out. Uh, and the third candidate that I have is actually Bam Adebayo. I feel like a lot of people have been sleeping on him a lot. He even says, "I believe I'm the Defensive Player of the Year," but you know, he's had a better season this year, I'd say, than last season. And last year was an All Star, but I just think the fact that the Heat have had injuries and people have been out because of COVID, like people kind of forget about that, and they're kind of sleeping on Bam a little bit. I feel like a lot of people acknowledge what Jimmy did, considering how great he was in the finals last year, but not enough people are giving Bam attention. So I'm gonna put him as my top three candidate. The winner I have though is it was really close with Ben and Rudy Gobert, probably like a 50-50, but I'm gonna lean toward Ben Simmons. And I think this might be the closest vote at the end of the day, or the one that follows. But what about you? What do you got?
Yeah, so I think this is the hardest one to nail down three candidates. I think Rudy Gobert and Ben Simmons are clearly in the top three. And then that third guy, you had Bam. Um, I have Giannis. If you wanted to throw Draymond Green in, go for it. If you think Miles Turner has a shot, go for it. Like, there's nothing that I'm going to argue with you on that front. Um, but I ended up going with Rudy Gobert. I just think that what he does for that team, in terms of his defensive, he's the anchor of that defense. Whereas you go to Philadelphia, you still do have Joel Embiid down in the paint, who is a force to be reckoned with on the defensive end. You have Danny Green, who's a great defender. You have Matisse Thybulle, and if you want to throw him in the top three, go for it. I don't think it's going to happen, but he's going to make an all NBA defensive team for the most part. Drew Holiday is up there, so the names go on and on and on, and unfortunately, we can only pick three. Um, but I think Gobert and Simmons are two of the top three, and then spin the bottle and pick the third as you choose. But I'm going to go Rudy Gobert as the winner of this award.
Yeah, I think, and like you said, some of the guys that get recognition, I would probably say Miles Turner. If he didn't get hurt, he would probably have a really good case at number three. But with that injury, there's people like Giannis and Bam that very well could be a finalist instead. But we can move on to Rookie of the Year. What do you have for your top three and the ultimate crown champ?
Yeah, so I went Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, and then Tyrese Halliburton. I thought this one was pretty straightforward. You had some games missed from LaMelo. Halliburton's missed some games towards the end of the season as well. But I think clearly these three have been the best three rookies from the beginning of the season. Um, the winner is tough for me because I think part of it is kind of like how we met with that MVP conversation in the mid-season where it's like Embiid might have a case, but has he missed too many games? Um, I think LaMelo's missed too many games to win the award. I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards. I think they were neck and neck, and then you get a guy who plays just about every game versus a guy who misses a chunk of the season. And I don't think it's fair to hand that to LaMelo Ball. Well, I don't want to say it's not fair because I think there's still a shot that LaMelo Ball does win it. But in my book, I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards. Really turned on the burners since the middle part of the season. Has played just about every game. So for that reason, I'm going to give it to Edwards.
Yeah, and I think for a majority of the season, I'd say right around March or so when LaMelo got hurt, like late March, about early April. Everyone was saying this award is wrapped up. They said LaMelo basically had it in the bag because of where the Hornets were and how great he was playing, how efficient he was as both like a scorer, a distributor, how much he was rebounding for a guard. Like he was doing just about everything and helping the Hornets win as well. Uh, but obviously over time, Anthony Edwards, he kind of struggled a little bit to start the year in terms of efficiency. He was shooting like I believe 35% the first like month or so. But then he really like turned it up, and I think he averaged like 22 points a game like the rest of the season, on pretty good splits, not just from the field but from three, from the free throw line. And you even have seen like the Timberwolves, they've started winning games to end the year. I think they ended the season with like 8-6 or something. And the Hornets, they started sliding, and it might be tough for LaMelo because he's not part of the reason that they slid from around the 4 or 5 seed to eighth or so when he came back. But that's part of the game, and you can't really go against it. My three candidates are the same though: Edwards, LaMelo, Tyrese Halliburton. But I agree. I think that Anthony Edwards is going to win this award.
Yeah, and I'm trying to real quickly pull up just a quick comparison of the two to see where they fall. So Edwards played all 72 games. LaMelo played 51 games. So Edwards played another 21 games, or about another 40%. LaMelo ended the season averaging 16, 6, and 6. Anthony Edwards averaged 19, 4, and 5. So numbers are close. Um, Steals small edge to LaMelo, blocks small edge to Anthony Edwards. Neither shot the ball great. LaMelo ball is 35% from three, Edwards 33%, and then both right around the 50% from the 2-point line. 50% effective field goal percentage for LaMelo Ball, 49 for Anthony Edwards. So a lot of neck and neck stats. If you want to look at some of the advanced stats, LaMelo Ball's win shares are quite a bit higher. All the advanced stats favor LaMelo Ball in terms of he has positive values in them, and just about every advanced stat for Anthony Edwards has a negative value. But I don't know how much we're going to look into advanced stats to determine the rookie of the year as much as it's going to be games played, because I think if people consider that LaMelo has played enough games, the award goes to LaMelo, and if people feel that he hasn't played enough games, it goes to Anthony Edwards. That's how I see it playing out.
Yeah, and I mean, a few of them will get considered for sure, like maybe win shares or, PER. And I know like those aren't always the greatest measurements or something, but I think there's only maybe a handful of advanced stats that could probably help LaMelo's case when they come to vote. But we can move on to the biggest award of them all, which is the MVP. Um, I could give, I guess, my three first. I have the two centers that have been going at it for most of the year, Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. Um, and then my third one, it was kind of hard to pick a third one because you could go different options. You can go with, Steph Curry, what he's done with the Warriors. You could go with, Damian Lillard. You can go with Luka Doncic, James Harden. But I ended up going, I think, with Giannis. They're a top three seed in the Eastern Conference, and he's had some improvements throughout the season as well as an individual player, not necessarily the team record alongside him, but I think he's made some strides this year as a player as well. And my ultimate winner was Nikola Jokic. Nick Wright. I like Nikola Jokic. He's probably one of my top five favorite players in the league. But Nick Wright saying that this will be like the weakest MVP in like 35 years. I don't know if I completely agree with that. That's kind of crazy, but you also have to think this probably isn't one of the best MVP seasons considering, the biggest reason for Jokic winning it is the fact that, he outlasted everybody. Embiid got hurt, LeBron got hurt, Dame got hurt, Steph got hurt. Just about everybody had like some crucial injury, missed about 10 or more games. But credit to Jokic because he didn't miss any. So I mean, that's kind of where the MVP stands this year. I think if Embiid was healthy and didn't miss as many games, this would be a lot closer of a race for sure. But I'm going to lean with Nikola Jokic. I think that an MVP at the end of the day is still an MVP, and he's the most deserving of winning it.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic is a lock for the MVP. Let's get that out of the way. He's the number one contender. And then we just have to figure out where two and three go. I actually didn't include Joel Embiid in the top three. I think once again, games missed is such a big factor, and that he doesn't fall into that. So I went with Curry and Giannis to round out my top three. I feel pretty comfortable with my top three being that. I don't think that Jokic won it because those guys got injured. I think Jokic won it because of his numbers. He put up 26, 10, and 8. Um, Early on, we were talking about him versus Embiid. Oh, he has the numbers, but the Nuggets are struggling. They finished as the 3 seed. I think early on we were talking if they could get to the 3 or the 4 seed, that those numbers are clearly better than Embiid's and that he will take home the award. Like I said, 20, what was it? 26, 11, and 8 is what he put up. Embiid had a great season himself, averaging 28 and 10, but isn't much of a playmaker on the offensive end outside of that, but then has the defensive edge. Um, so the injury to Embiid certainly helped Jokic, but I think Jokic helped himself more than anything else.
Yeah, and I think one thing is, it might be a little misleading with, the Nuggets being a 3 seed, but, if they were in the Eastern Conference, yeah, they'd be a 3 seed, but they'd only be like 2 games back of the first record, which is, you know, half of what like they'd have to do to get to the first seed in the Western Conference.
Right.
So, oh wait, sorry, were you gonna say something?
Oh, no, no, I was just agreeing with what you were saying in terms of the gap, games back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I'm hating on Jokic because he deserved the MVP, for sure. And I mean, playing games like that's usually part of almost every MVP. Didn't really affect probably I think Bill Walton when he won his, but there's not like many instances where an MVP can miss like 20 or 30 games and then still come out and get the award. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't really care. Like if it was Jokic winning it or Embiid, all these guys, they've never won one, and I think it's pretty good for all of them. But I think Jokic has the MVP on lock. Um,
No doubt.
yeah, but we can move on to our play-in predictions now. Let's start off with the 7-8 in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics and Wizards. What do you have going on here?
I like the Wizards here. I'm not gonna lie. A team that's rounding into form late in the season versus a team in the Celtics that is just going straight downhill. Jalen Brown out for the season. Expectations have gone from here at the beginning of the season to here middle of the season when they weren't playing very well, and then just straight tank now without Jalen Brown. So I think Russell Westbrook's going to come in and win this game for the Wizards.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Wizards also win. They've been way better than the Boston Celtics over the past like 2, 3 weeks. And I mean, if you're telling Russell Westbrook, hey, if you win this game, then you get a playoff matchup against Kevin Durant. I mean, I'm sure that he's probably going to take that offer. Um, so I mean, I got the Wizards. You got the Wizards. Let's actually do just so we don't get confused. Let's do the 9-10 in the East first, and then we'll do the next game in the Eastern Conference. But what do you got in the 9-10 game?
So the 9-10 is Indiana versus Charlotte. I like Indiana here. I think Sabonis is going to be the best player on the court. One game series, if you will. A lot of times you lean with the best player. Karis LeVert's there as well. So I think Indiana takes home the win here.
Yeah, I feel like this one's a bit weird. If Gordon Hayward was playing for the Hornets, which I don't think he is, he's listed as like doubtful for the game, so I can't really rely on that. Of course, on the Pacers end, they don't have Brogdon, and they've had they could have Brogdon, but I don't know if he'll necessarily play. He's kind of like a similar question mark. And guys like Warren and Turner have been out for them, but I think also the Pacers they've had higher expectations than the Hornets in recent history. This could go either way. I'd probably lean towards Indiana though, just like you. And then I think we have the same matchup for the 8 seed game, the Celtics and the Pacers. What do you got here?
I like Boston here. Similar story. Best player on the court, Jason Tatum, has somewhat of a supporting cast still in Kemba, Marcus Smart, Evan Fournier. I just think he's going to will them to the playoffs.
I also had the Celtics winning. By that time they might have Brogdon back, and if that's the case, him, Levert, Sabonis, I could very well see the Pacers winning. But it's kind of too much of a question mark, like I said. And I'm gonna go with Boston. They don't have Brown, but they still have Tatum. They'll still have Smart. They'll still have Kemba Walker. And that should definitely be enough to get them past the play-in, especially with 2 chances. So that would leave the Wizards as the 7 seed against the Nets and the Celtics as the 8 seed against the 76ers, a rematch of last year. Only different home court advantage and kind of the opposite situation. Because like last year Ben was hurt, who was probably the second best player, and then this year it's like Jalen Brown's going to be hurt for the Celtics. But yeah, we can move on to the Western Conference now, starting with the 7-8 Western Conference game between the Lakers and the Warriors. What do you got here?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be. I think the NBA couldn't have wished for anything better to come out of a playing game than seeing a Lakers Warriors, a Steph versus AD and LeBron game. I think the Lakers are too much, and I think they take this game pretty easily.
I think we're gonna have our first difference here. I'm gonna go with the Warriors. I think that the Lakers are gonna come out. They're not gonna be, quite as motivated because it's the first game. You know what LeBron always said about game ones. They're feeler games, and it's not like a lose you go home type of situation either. Meanwhile, though, the Warriors, I'm sure that Steph wants to make a big statement in defeating LeBron and AD and the team that just won the championship last year. So in this 7-8 matchup, I'm going to go with the Warriors to get my 7 seed. Meanwhile, you have the Lakers. And then in the 9-10 game with the Grizzlies and Spurs, what do you got?
I like San Antonio here. Popovich, DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray. I think that they can get the job done.
Yeah, I also have the Spurs. The Grizzlies are 2-1 against them in the regular season, but I just think that the Spurs have more experience. You can never count out Popovich. And I think that, if the Warriors do beat the Lakers, I think that definitely DeMar DeRozan is going to be trying to do everything to win this game so he could have a chance at playing, the Lakers. You know what they always said about LeBron owning him in Toronto and all that stuff. He might want to try and, get that revenge. But in next game, you have the Warriors and Spurs. I have the Lakers and Spurs. But what do you have for your 8 seed game?
Yeah, I like the Warriors. I think the Spurs, a one and done type of thing here in the play-in tournament. I think Steph gets it done.
Yeah, and for me, I also had the Lakers. I mean, you can't. It's too hard to predict the playoffs without LeBron, AD, especially when that team's just now getting healthy. Um, it's possible I would give the Spurs some kind of chance, but I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't bet my money that the Spurs are going to beat the Lakers in the play-in, especially when they'd have to win back-to-back games. But yeah, I think that's pretty much going to do it for the show. Pretty basic, pretty straightforward show. Hope you guys enjoyed. Any final thoughts?
No, nothing overarching, guys. Playoffs are here. That's what we've been waiting for this whole time. Finally here, like I said. So just enjoy it. Enjoy it while you can. And let's just hope for some good games. That's all we can do.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it. And we got a lot of rematches from last year and some rivalries really that started in the last 2 or so years too. So should be fun to see. But hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace.